The silence before the storm. The galaxy had forgotten. 10,000 years is a long time, even for the longest-lived species. The Xanthari Dominion had risen to power in humanity's absence, their crystalline ships gliding through the stars like predators in the night. They controlled 60% of the Milky Way, their governance unchallenged except for minor skirmishes with the Voth Confederacy and other lesser powers. First speaker Thel Zarek stood on the observation deck of his flagship, the Crystal Ascendant, gazing at the holographic display of Dominion territory, a galaxy of order, of progress under their careful guidance. The primitives had been uplifted, the troublemakers had been subdued, and the myths of the past, the violent species that once threatened galactic harmony, were nothing but cautionary tales told to younglings. First speaker, we've received a priority transmission from science vessel Empirical Truth. His aide announced, crystal fragments in her headdress, tinkling softly as she bowed. Thel Zarek turned, his iridescent scales reflecting the blue light of the holodisplay. What have they found now? Another extinct civilization? No, sir. They report anomalous energy readings from the dead zone. The first speaker's inner eyelids flickered in surprise. The dead zone, what the ancients once called the Perseus Arm, had been quarantined for millennia. Nothing lived there, not since the Purge. Show me, he commanded. The holodisplay shifted, focusing on a remote sector of the dead zone. A pulsing red dot indicated the source of the disturbance. The signal appeared 3 cycles ago, the aide explained. It's been growing stronger. The Empirical Truth reports that it matches no known energy signature in our databases. Then search the historical archives, Thel Zarek ordered, a sense of unease growing in his gut. Hours later, the first speaker found himself in the ancestral archives, a vast chamber rarely visited by anyone but historians and the occasional spiritual seeker. The chief archivist, Elder Voselar, a Xanthari so old his scales had faded to a pale translucent white, approached with a data crystal cupped in his gnarled hands. We found a match, the elder whispered, his voice raspy with age. It is troubling. The data crystal was inserted into the reader, and the holographic display flickered to life. Ancient footage, grainy and distorted, showed massive ships, brutal in their design, all sharp angles and exposed weapon systems, firing upon Xanthari vessels. The energy signatures from their weapons matched the anomalous readings perfectly. These are records from the Great Purge, Elder Voselar explained, when our ancestors faced extinction at the hands of the humans. Thel Zarek felt his blood run cold. Humans, the violent bipeds who nearly destroyed galactic civilization before they were finally eradicated, or so the histories claimed. Impossible. The humans were wiped out 10,000 years ago. Their planets were bombarded into lifeless husks. Elder Voselar's eyes reflected the ancient footage of destruction. Were they? The final offensive against Earth resulted in a massive energy surge that destroyed half the attack fleet. Our ancestors assumed it was a final act of defiance, a suicide weapon. But what if it wasn't? What are you suggesting, Elder? What if they didn't die? What if they simply left? Disappeared to lick their wounds, to hide, to wait? Before Thel Zarek could dismiss this preposterous notion, his communicator chimed. First speaker. The voice of his aide sounded panicked. The Empirical Truth has gone silent. Before contact was lost, they transmitted images of a structure activating in the dead zone. It's enormous. Across the galaxy, in what the Xanthari called the dead zone, a colossal station was awakening. Deep within its corridors, automated systems performed checks and diagnostics, power flowing through conduits that had lain dormant for millennia. The station, UNDF Bastion Alpha, had been waiting, its AI patiently monitoring the galaxy, watching for signs that it was time. In the heart of the station, cryogenic pods began the revival process. Inside one such pod, Admiral Helena Vasquez opened her eyes for the first time in 10,000 years. The revival was disorienting, but her training kicked in immediately. She assessed her surroundings, noting the soft blue emergency lighting and the gentle hum of the station coming to life. "Status report," she croaked, her voice rough from disuse. The station's AI responded immediately, its voice calm and measured. "Good morning, Admiral. Phase 1 activation complete. Fleet status, 98% operational. Bastion Alpha is online and awaiting your command. Current galactic date, approximately 10,247 years since Operation Exodus." Helena sat up slowly, muscles protesting as she swung her legs over the edge of the pod. "And the signal?" "Confirmed, Admiral. The Nexus beacon has been detected. The criteria have been met. It is time for the return." A ghost of a smile crossed Helena's face. "Then let's wake the others. The long night is over." Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Xanthari Dominion mobilized. Thelzeric had ordered a battle fleet to investigate the disturbance in the dead zone. 20 ships of the line, the pride of the Dominion, approached the coordinates of the lost science vessel with weapons charged. Fleet Commander Vex Toral stood on the bridge of the inevitable dominance, watching as his ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Before them floated the remains of the empirical truth, its crystalline hull shattered. And beyond it, by the first egg, someone whispered. A massive station hung in space, its dark metal surface coming alive with lights and activity. It dwarfed even the inevitable dominance, which was the largest vessel in the Dominion fleet. And surrounding it, appearing from what seemed to be cloaked positions, were ships. Hundreds of ships, their designs unfamiliar yet somehow threatening. "Scan those vessels," Vex Toral ordered, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. "Sir, the energy signatures match those in the historical archives. These are human vessels." Vex Toral's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. "Impossible. The humans are extinct." "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the station." "Put it through." The holoscreen flickered, and Vex Toral found himself looking at a bipedal creature with hairless skin and flat teeth. A human female, if the historical records were accurate. "This is Admiral Helena Vasquez of the United Nations Defense Force," she said, her voice firm and commanding. "Your vessel has entered restricted space. Identify yourself and state your intentions." Vex Toral drew himself up to his full height. "I am Fleet Commander Vex Toral of the Xanthari Dominion. You are trespassing in Dominion territory. These sectors have been under our control for thousands of years." The human's expression didn't change. "This station and the surrounding space have been under human control for far longer, Commander. Your presence here is a violation of boundaries established before your civilization achieved spaceflight." Vex Toral felt a surge of anger. The humans were defeated in the Great Purge. Your kind is supposed to be extinct. At this, the human's mouth curved upward in what the commander recognized as a smile. Though on a human, it didn't seem friendly. "Reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated, Commander. We simply chose to step away for a time. Now, we have returned. You have 1 standard hour to withdraw your forces from this sector. This conversation is over." The transmission cut off, leaving Vex Toral staring at a blank screen. "Sir," his tactical officer spoke up, "we're detecting energy buildups across the human fleet. They appear to be powering weapon systems." Vex Toral's mind raced. His 20 ships against hundreds of human vessels. The odds were not favorable. But to retreat would be to show weakness, to acknowledge the humans as equals, or worse, superiors. "Maintain position," he ordered, and inform the first speaker. The humans have returned. Aboard Bastion Alpha, Admiral Vasquez turned to her newly awakened command staff. "The Xanthari, just as arrogant as our records indicated," she said, watching the alien ships on the tactical display. Commander Reinhardt, her second in command, nodded. "They won't retreat. Their historical response patterns show they interpret withdrawal as weakness." "Then we demonstrate our capability," Helena decided. Tactical, prepare a precision strike. Target their flagship's propulsion systems only. No casualties if possible. Yes, Admiral. Helena gazed at the display, her expression solemn. 10,000 years of preparation had led to this moment. Operation Exodus, humanity's greatest gambit, had worked. They had disappeared when defeat seemed inevitable, retreated to the darkest corners of the galaxy to rebuild, to evolve, to prepare. And now, they had returned to a galaxy that had forgotten them. A galaxy that would soon remember why humanity had once been feared. "Strike authorized," she said quietly. A single beam of concentrated energy lanced out from Bastion Alpha, striking the inevitable dominance with surgical precision. The Xanthari flagship's engines went dark, leaving it adrift in space. The message was clear: we could have destroyed you, but chose not to. Helena watched as panic spread through the Xanthari fleet. Some ships moved to assist their flagship, while others adjusted their positions, weapons trained on the human vessels. "Open a channel," she ordered. Once again, Fleet Commander Vex Toral's face appeared on the screen, though now the bridge behind him was bathed in red emergency lighting. "That was a demonstration, Commander," Helena said calmly. "We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend what is ours. You have 55 minutes remaining to withdraw." As she ended the transmission, Helena knew that the real battle was just beginning. Not a battle of weapons, but of wills. Humanity had returned to claim its place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. The resurgence of Titans. The news spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. Humans, the legendary destroyers, the mythical warriors of old, had returned. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the Xanthari Dominion capital world, First Speaker Thelzeric faced an unprecedented crisis. 20 ships of his finest fleet now drifted powerless, towed back to Dominion space by the very beings they had gone to confront. The humans had disabled their vessels with surgical precision, then offered to escort them home. A calculated humiliation that demonstrated both technological superiority and a disturbing confidence. The historical records did not prepare us for this, Elder Voslar admitted to the assembled council. The humans we face now are not the same as those our ancestors fought. Holographic displays showed the human battle station and the fleet surrounding it. Analysis indicated that their technology had advanced far beyond what the historical records documented. Their ships moved with impossible grace, their energy signatures defied conventional understanding, and their communication systems easily penetrated the Dominion's most sophisticated encryption. "What do they want?" demanded Councillor Trevnera, her crystal headdress vibrating with agitation. Thelzeric raised his hands for silence. "They have made no demands beyond recognition of their territorial claim to what we call the Dead Zone. Admiral Vasquez has requested a diplomatic meeting." A murmur ran through the assembly. Diplomacy. With humans, it could be a trap, someone suggested. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so already. Thelzeric countered. "I have agreed to the meeting. We must understand what we are facing." The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Accord departed the next day, carrying First Speaker Thelzeric and a small contingent of advisors. The journey to the edge of the Dead Zone, now officially recognized as human space, was tense. Historical recordings of the Great Purge played on repeat in Thelzeric's private quarters as he studied the ancient enemy. What he saw disturbed him. The humans fought with a ferocity the Xanthari had never matched. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation, employed tactics that seemed suicidal until they succeeded, and adapted to setbacks with frightening speed. The records showed that the Xanthari's ancestors had only prevailed through overwhelming numbers and the support of now extinct allied species. When the Harmonious Accord arrived at the designated coordinates, a human vessel was waiting, sleek, dark, and utterly unlike the brutal warships of old. The Xanthari were escorted to a meeting chamber that seemed designed to accommodate various species comfortably. Admiral Helena Vasquez greeted them personally. She stood tall for a human, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that seemed to evaluate and calculate with every glance. Unlike the barbaric warlords depicted in Xanthari historical records, she was composed, articulate, and disarmingly courteous. "First speaker Thelzeric," she said, inclining her head slightly. "Thank you for accepting my invitation. Please, be seated." The meeting began with formal introductions, then progressed to the matter at hand. "Let me be direct," Vasquez said. "Humanity did not perish in what you call the Great Purge. We executed a strategic withdrawal, Operation Exodus. We took our remaining population, our technology, and our knowledge, and we disappeared." "To where?" Thelzeric couldn't help asking. Vasquez smiled. "That remains classified information. What matters is that we used our time away wisely. We rebuilt, we advanced, and we observed the galaxy's development from afar. And now you have returned to reclaim what was lost." There was an edge to Thelzeric's voice. "Not exactly," the Admiral replied. "We have returned because the galaxy needs us." She gestured, and a holographic display appeared between them, showing a massive spiral of darkness approaching the galaxy's edge. "This is what we call the Void Tide. It's a wave of exotic matter that consumes everything in its path. Our long-range sensors detected it 300 years ago. It will reach the outer rim of the galaxy within 50 years. Thelzeric stared at the display, his inner eyelids flickering rapidly. "If this threat is real, why not simply warn us? Why this dramatic return?" Vasquez's expression hardened. "We tried. We sent anonymous warnings through various channels over the past century. They were dismissed as hoaxes or superstition. The Dominion's official position was that cosmic threats were tools used by dissidents to undermine central authority." The first speaker had no response to this. It was, embarrassingly, an accurate representation of Dominion policy. "Furthermore," Vasquez continued, "addressing this threat requires technology that only we possess, technology we developed during our absence." Meanwhile, across human-controlled space, Operation Renaissance entered its final phase. The massive shipyards hidden within gas giants and hollowed-out moons began producing vessels at an accelerated rate. Cryogenic facilities awakened millions of humans who had slept through the millennia. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and civilians prepared for the fight that would determine the galaxy's fate. Commander Elena Voss stood on the bridge of the Defiance, one of humanity's newest vessels, watching as her crew performed system checks. Unlike the older generation of officers who remembered Earth and the Exodus, Elena had been born in the hidden colonies. For her, the legends of the homeworld were just that, legends. "Engineering reports all systems nominal, Commander," her executive officer reported. Elena nodded. "Good. Set course for Nexus Point Alpha. We're to rendezvous with the diplomatic fleet." The Defiance slipped into the quantum stream, a method of faster-than-light travel developed during humanity's absence, and emerged near the massive station where Admiral Vasquez continued her diplomatic efforts. By now, representatives from other galactic powers had arrived. The insectoid Voth Confederacy, the gaseous Aetherials, the machine intelligences of the Synthetica Collective. Each regarded humanity with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and skepticism. Elena was assigned to brief them on the Void Tide and humanity's proposed solution. As she entered the Grand Conference Chamber, she felt the weight of history on her shoulders. These were the descendants of those who had driven humanity from its home. Now they would have to work together or face extinction. "The Void Tide consumes all conventional matter," Elena explained, displaying simulation models on the holoprojector. "It converts it into exotic dark energy that further fuels its expansion. Once it reaches the galactic rim, we estimate complete consumption of the Milky Way within 300 years. And you expect us to believe that only humans can stop this threat?" The Voth representative's mandibles clicked with suspicion. Elena activated another display, showing a massive ring-shaped device. "This is the Aegis Array. It generates a quantum barrier that can repel the void tide. We've successfully tested smaller versions. Now we need to construct the full-scale system at key points around the galaxy. And the cost of this assistance. The ethereal representative's form rippled with what might have been skepticism. Cooperation, Elena stated simply. Recognition of human sovereignty over our reclaimed territories. And a new galactic charter that ensures peaceful coexistence. The chamber erupted in multiple languages, voices raised in argument and disbelief. The Synthetica representative raised a metallic hand for attention. Our probability models indicate the humans speak the truth, it intoned. The threat is real. We have detected anomalies consistent with their data. The question is not whether we face extinction, but whether their solution will work. Admiral Vasquez, who had remained silent until now, stood. We will provide full technical specifications of the Aegis array to your scientists. Verify our claims, test our theories, but do not waste time in denial. The void tide approaches, indifferent to politics. As the galactic representatives argued among themselves, Elena slipped away to a quiet observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, she could see the massive human fleet assembled nearby. Ships of all sizes, from nimble corvettes to city-sized dreadnoughts, hung in the darkness like a promise or a threat. Admiral Vasquez joined her a short time later. How did they take it? Elena asked. About as well as expected, the Admiral replied. The Xanthari are suspicious, the Voth are calculating the advantages, and the Synthetica are running simulations. But they'll come around. They have no choice. Elena watched as a new vessel emerged from the quantum stream, the Prometheus, humanity's most advanced ship. It dwarfed everything around it, its hull gleaming with integrated quantum technology. Is that wise? She asked, nodding toward the behemoth. Showing them our best. Vasquez smiled faintly. It's a calculated risk. They need to understand that we're not the same humans their ancestors faced. We've evolved. We've transcended many of our former limitations. And our former aggression. The Admiral's expression grew solemn. That we keep. It served us well during the dark years. It will serve us again against the void. 3 days later, the Galactic Concord was signed. Humanity was officially recognized as a sovereign power. The construction of the Aegis array began, with all species contributing resources and expertise under human guidance. As the first section of the array took shape in the outer rim, first speaker Thelzeric found himself standing beside Admiral Vasquez once more, watching the construction through a viewport. Your ancestors would be proud, he said, surprising himself with the admission. Vasquez regarded him thoughtfully. They wouldn't recognize us, I think. 10,000 years changes a species. We're not the same humans who fought your ancestors. No, Thelzeric agreed. You're something more dangerous. You disappeared rather than faced defeat. You waited and watched from the shadows. You returned not with vengeance, but with salvation we cannot refuse. Is salvation so terrible a thing? The first speaker's scales shifted in a pattern that humans might interpret as a rueful smile. It creates a debt that cannot be repaid, and it forces us to accept that everything we believed about your kind was wrong. Vasquez turned back to the viewport, where the massive ring of the Aegis array glimmered as it took shape against the backdrop of stars. Not everything, she said quietly. We are still the most stubborn, defiant species you will ever encounter. We still refuse to accept defeat, even from the universe itself. As if to punctuate her words, the Prometheus moved into position near the array, its quantum drives pulsing with energy. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, not as conquerors, but as saviors, and perhaps someday as friends. The silent stars bore witness to this unexpected turn in the galaxy's story. Humanity, once driven to the brink of extinction, had returned transformed. The species that had disappeared in fire and defiance had reemerged with wisdom and power beyond imagination. The long night was over. A new dawn had begun.